Up next is a panel discussion that provides a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to hear from successful founders and investors and others with extensive experience supporting entrepreneurs as they scale their consumer tech firms. By means of this upcoming session, you will learn how to go from a tech-centric mindset to one focused on strategic business growth, as our panelists will explore the topic from technology visionary to business leader, the pivot that matters. Please help me welcome our moderator, Teri Green, the CIO and Engagement Manager of Lite Technology Solutions and Netwoven, to the stage. Welcome, Teri. Joining Teri on the panel will be Mary Patry, the IT Executive Coach and Advisor of ITeffectivity, LLC, Thomas Swanson, the CEO and Chief Science Officer at Sativa Science, Rama Prasad, the founder and CEO of Teqnizan, Inc., and Lisa M. Brooks, the founder of DeveloPRO, and Sam Elshiwick, the president of DRP Consulting, Inc. Welcome this next panel.
How's everybody doing today? Okay, so I'm a person that needs energy, right? So we as leaders, we realize we are only as great as the people that we lead. So it's really important. I'm gonna ask a question. I'm gonna need you to interact with me. You think you can do that for me? All right, all right. How many people in this room would consider themselves a leader? So how many people would consider themselves a visionary? Okay, I like it. You guys like those responses out there? So we have a very structured sitcom. The team is going to go with a brief introduction of who they are so you can understand who we're getting some critical advice from. And then from there, we're going to the panel discussion segments with some structured questions.
There's a lot of noise back there. Huh.
Excuse me, gentleman in the back. How you doing? I would love it if you would like to sit and stay, but please don't talk. That's so disrespectful.
Oh, Teri. Hi, Mary Patry. I am the founder of ITeffectivity, founded in 2013. I work with technology leaders in their direct reports, very specifically on helping them to find their way to be the best leader that they can be, a leader that people want to follow, that is inspired by them. That is not something that is sometimes native to technology people that have grown up in the technology industry itself, because they're sometimes very introverted. But I get great joy out of seeing the growth and them realizing they're reaching their own dreams. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Thomas Swanson. I'm an MD neurologist. I am a co-founder of a group of very talented clinicians, scientists, and tech people who have crafted a SaaS-based internet company. My background is as a clinician. I've also been a basic science researcher and have been a principal investigator on a number of pharmaceutical trials, mainly in the epilepsy space. And our company, Sativa Science, deals with the use of medical cannabis for true medical patients in need.
Yeah, I'm Rama Prasad. I'm kind of a mid-career technical or engineer. And the first part of my career was doing product development and technology development for large global corporations in consumer electronics. And recently, around 2016, we launched a company that's developing a new category of products where we are integrating electronics, functional electronics, into jewelry, wearable jewelry. And our first product is in the market now, and we are looking into enhancing it and working on the next gen.
Hi, everyone. I am Lisa Brooks. Such a pleasure to be up here with you guys and with the panel. My background is in talent and development, along with instructional design. I pretty much work with corporations, organizations, brick and mortar to high-end luxury on their leadership fundamentals, and also developing a customized training for any organization that basically is trying to support their customer service initiatives. So I will be, my company is DeveloPRO.co. You can find me there. And we pretty much specialize in helping you tell your story and building out content for you for training and also for media production as well.
Hello, everybody. Sam Elshiwick. I started DRP Consulting 30 years ago. We become our clients' trusted advisor. We help them with creative, innovative technologies and solutions to help them become more efficient. It could be time saving or cost saving, and that ultimately translates into profitability.
Awesome. And as you all know, I'm Teri Green. I actually have a federal cybersecurity contracting firm. I've been in technology for about 17 years, executive leader for a lot of big companies that we all would know, and stepped out about 3 years ago, created my own firm with my wife, who is a forensic psychologist. And I figured out from a cybersecurity perspective how valuable it was to encrypt, using her mindset to figure out how important it was to decrypt. So I didn't even deal with the big wave of let goes, because I actually meditate and do yoga with my team, making them more effective people actually translated to my business operations. So enough of all that good stuff, guys, okay? So I'm gonna get to some great questions here. I'm gonna start with you, Mary, because you're closer to me, okay? But your name rhyme with mine. Mary Terry. How do you define visionary? What does that mean to you, Mary?
A visionary to me is the person who sees the need and has the capability of visualizing how it can be, as well as can take it forward to fruition. So, I'm a very visionary person, but I would have to admit that I personally am the person who loves to make things move forward. And it doesn't mean that I'm not a leader. It does mean that my focus is more on the how to make it happen. So many times visionaries are people who do see that need, who really need to rely on others in order to help them to move it forward. That is certainly not always the case. So again, the visionary is someone who sees the need, who can visualize how it can be, and has the capability to bring it to market.
That's very interesting. So I want to ask that same question to you, Rama. From what does a visionary mean?
Yeah. To me, as an engineer, the visionary is not so much seeing the need, but seeing a solution, because I think technology first, right? So for example, the company that we have, being an engineer and having worked in that space a lot, it just made sense to us that electronics should get integrated into jewelry that we wear all the time. So there wasn't a need where the customer, the everyday woman said, hey, my necklace needs to have some microphone in it. There wasn't there, but we were like, it's the right size, it's right there. With the wearable technology, that trend is occurring. We could build it, then what could we do? It could solve so many problems, and fulfill so many needs. So I think we can, from a tech visionary direction, we can come from the tech direction and connect the dots. And I saw one saying that, Steve Jobs said, you can connect the dots looking back. Actually, you can connect the dots looking in the future too. You can kind of connect things and see there is synergy or overlap.
Rama, I like that saying, how we can connect the dots in the future. Tom, being a doctor, can you connect the dots? What does it mean to be a visionary to you?
So I would echo some of the things that have already been said. I have been asked this question before, and when I talk to my children who I'm training to be entrepreneurs, I say, visionary is obviously somebody who sees into the future, sees what needs to be done, that no one else is doing, that they have unique capabilities of doing. So that's how we kind of almost identify our purpose in life in a way. So that's the vision, and it does, visionary implies seeing in the future. How we get there from the vision, in terms of, from my perspective, not in the tech industry, coming from the medical industry, I had this vision of things that needed to be done. But then getting to a business is a whole different story. So some visionaries are good at that. I've had a lot of difficulty moving in that direction.
Lisa, can you make the vision plain for me?
I'm sorry, what do you?
Make the vision plain for me. He said, we got to get in there, we got to see the vision, but sometimes you got to make the vision plain. It can't be so complex. So
Yeah.
what does it mean to you?
To make the vision plain, how would I say that? I would say definitely keeping it simple is very key, but also thinking about your execution strategy, because once you have the vision, it's one thing to be an innovator. It's one thing to have this grandiose idea of how things will come about. However, utilizing your resources around you, such as your people, and ensuring that they are equipped and mentored to help you, well, you're mentoring them, and they're also, or also entrusting in them to do their jobs and their roles. And so that can essentially help you bring your vision to life. And it's all about how you choose to go about just being patient and allowing your team to do the work for you.
I love it. And as equality is important here, Sam, it's only right that I ask you the same question.
Well, for a technology visionary versus a visionary in general, they're usually very specific about a certain idea, and they pursue it, and they have passion and compassion about it, and they need to translate that into the team around them to make it happen. And most of the time in a startup, they are the person that's helping making it happen, right? So having that ability to share that energy with others and make them believe is a visionary, in my opinion.
I love that. And given startups is your thing there, and that mic is in your hand, if you can just share some sentiments on, so if we know what we all think and consider to be a visionary, what is the difference? What do we consider to be defined as a business leader?
That's a great transition. So a visionary and a business leader, and it's really going to depend on what phase your company's in. So I've been part of 64 startups in my career over 30 plus years. And inevitably what you see is it really comes down to 5 things, in my opinion, what your role is as a business leader, especially from a technology. So if you're a part of, when you're in a startup, 1, you need to be able to understand and believe in the vision to be able to translate that into becoming executable and making sure it happens. That's number 1. Number 2, you have to create a positive company culture. Right? And I'll expand upon that, why that's very important, and I'll share some statistics about some surveys here shortly. Number 3, you need to understand and have emotional intelligence, because if you are not motivating positively your team members or knowing their abilities or their ambitions, they probably won't perform or be able to execute as well as you think they would be. And that's part of being a business leader. 4, you need to understand the risks, ROI, profitability, and also making sure that, number 5, you understand your own strengths and you hire skilled team members when that time comes, because eventually when you get out of the startup and you have the funds to be able to get to the next level, you need to hire the right team and skills to be able to accomplish for the things that you're not strong in. And what you need to do is get out of their way.
Oh my God.
Right?
Get out of the way.
You need to get out of their way. So let me share, if you look at the 5 things that I just mentioned, and I'll take less than 30 seconds about this. If you look at some surveys that have occurred recently, you have MIT Business Review, Sloan Business Review has done a survey, and one of the top things that people have left in the in 2021 was because of toxic company culture. Number 1. U.S. Chamber of Commerce has also done a survey, and 62% of the people that were interviewed said they left because toxic company culture, as well as 57% of them said they felt disrespected at the company that they worked at. And Forbes has also done a survey similar. Toxic company culture, pay obviously is in all of those 3 surveys, but also they said poor management. So as a business leader, you're going to see that there's a lot of things that are around character, around people first, because people are your business, and being able to accomplish what you need to accomplish. And then lastly, You need to make sure that you understand when to transition from thinking from being a visionary when you're doing a startup and understand and know whether or not you are the right business leader to be able to move forward. Or do you transition or you get someone else to be that business leader?
I love that, Sam. I hear you screaming, internal customers, external customers. Customers matter, right? Talk to me, Lisa.
I could not agree more with Sam, because I definitely believe that being a business leader, definitely you have to campaign and behind your people. You have to motivate them. You have to get them inspired. And the big part of emotional intelligence, a lot of leaders do not understand what it takes to be emotionally intelligent. And the biggest thing that I have executed or implemented in my leadership academy that I produced with the organization that I'm currently with as well is that understanding the pillars of emotional intelligence, such as agile EQ. So first thing first, as leaders, I think we saw plenty of you that said that you were both the visionary, and some of you are actually a leader as well. And the biggest thing is that, there's no rule that you can be one and the same, right? But about how you go about engaging in with your people is all about your self-awareness, right? Then you have your social awareness. So how are you really leveraging social awareness? It really is all about sometimes implementing psychometric tools, behavioral analysis, so that you're able to really understand how to communicate with your people and encourage them, because everyone communicates completely different. So you have people who are extroverted, you have people that are introverted, but you have to be able as a leader to really get in tuned with yourself, so that you know how do you communicate, what are your well, I like to call it gifts of change, which are opportunities. What are your opportunities that you have to focus on? And allowing your team to also provide you bilateral feedback. I think that is so key, because if you're a leader and you're a visionary, sometimes we get stuck in we're in our own way, and we become super excited. Like, I am a abuser of this. I become super excited about something and I want to go for it. And sometimes I can not allow others to provide me feedback when necessary. So it's very important to have patience and also be able to listen to your team, so that they're able to, give you the tools and their additional resources and feedback that you need in order for you to be successful. Did I answer your question?
It did, but it actually led me to something. You just said something that was really important. You said, listen to your team. So I'm gonna ask the question again. How many visionaries are in the room? And how many leaders are in the room? Okay, so maybe they understood this. And they are this. Being the executive coach, Mary, I want to add to get to some more meat in this conversation, right? What will we feel are the key success factors for organizations when it's time to pivot? We know when it's time to pay tenants. How we know when it's time to hit the ball?
Well, I'll try to simplify it a little bit. Every organization goes through an evolution of the startup into what I'll call, pivoting into the mid-range, mid-market, and then, before it can be large. You can't go from startup to large effectively, easily. Every organization is made up of three major components: people, process, and then technology. A lot of times, especially in high-tech companies, the emphasis is on the technology without understanding the need, the requirements for people and processes if you intend to grow. When you first start out, everyone's kind of flying by the seat of their pants, doing what they need to do. Everyone's doing everything. And then there'll come a time where you'll plateau. When you start plateauing and you start losing people through burnout, attrition, whatever reason, that's the time to consider what's going on here. The best thing to do is to bring in people who have someone from the outside, because you all have blind spots. You are all technologists and you all are leaders. Are you really? What kind of feedback mechanism that you have that is measurable, that is telling you the truth and enabling people to tell you holistically and with frankness and candor as to where things is really at. Exit interviews don't work. People are not going to tell you the truth. They don't want to burn that bridge. So that's the time to really look at it, is when you've plateaued, financially plateaued when it comes to being able to retain your good people, to really assess what is going on. What do I need to do to get to my future goals?
She just said something. She said, how can we measure that success? So we got this nice business leader over here that had to pivot to this visionary and back and forth. How could that success be measured, be related back to the organization so they can see the variance and difference?
Yeah, so I want to take it back a level and go kind of back to basics. My high school football coach said to me, football is about two basic things, blocking and tackling. And going back to the basics in making this pivot and understanding why you're doing what you're doing really does require kind of honing back down. From my perspective, I've had this vision. I had no expertise in tech. So one of the basic things is to understand what you're able to do. And this kind of dovetails into what everyone else is saying in terms of the team and how important the team is. Figuring out what you can do, what you're good at, figuring out what your founder, because usually in a startup, you've got a founder or a co-founder, there's not 10 of you. And then there's a whole bunch of things that you can't do. So going back to the basics of figuring out what you're able to do and what you're not able to do, and then filling in those gaps. So I think in answer, how do you measure that? I think the measure of the success of making that pivot is how well you're able to fill those gaps and how you can build that team, whether that's, giving away equity or paying people or figuring it out yourself.
I love that. So when I decided to build my company, I made my wife the CEO because she was better with people, right? I'm having technical difficulties. Technically, I'm difficult, right? I'm a technology person. So I do love that candor. Can you highlight some of those points you just shared, Rama?
I agree. Kind of the journey we've been on, we had the vision, I had the vision, and, I didn't have really a lot of CEO type experience. So the options were, I learned it. How do you do a pitch deck? How do you pitch to investors? And then, all the various legal requirements. What are those like? We were going from an engineer to a corporation. Now, what does that mean, right? When you're going from a garage, we are building something to a corporation. And, one is, of course, I learned, we also talked to some other kind of CEO types that were excited about working with startups, but to bring in a CEO that will go through all the turbulence and uncertainty and kind of ups and downs and a lot of downs and no's and all, it's not that easy to find.
Oh, it's not. Not everybody likes turbulence.
Yeah, they maybe some will not stick with it, especially in the early days. And so for our case, of course, some of this team stuck with it because they shared the vision and we worked well together. And so I had to learn a lot about being the CEO. Now we are in the next phase where we need to start scaling in the market. And I think we found a CEO.
You got to claim it.
Yeah. Well, no, this person is more focused on the customers and all. So I think you may find somebody externally who will, join the team and fulfill the business leadership role, or the team has to learn it, or give up. Of course, there's a third option.
I love it, Rama. And you just said something that's going to lead Lisa into my next question. What is the biggest, most common misconception, Lisa, between a visionary and a business leader?
Well, I think I alluded to it before, is that that they both can exist without one another. So I think that's the most misperception that's out there right now. Here's the thing. I say that with caution because I do believe that a visionary and a leader has to have discipline. They have to know how to execute. And that means that sometimes you have to put together a performance management analysis. And that's a tool that you can leverage with yourself, personally gauging yourself, what you're bringing to the organization, your team, And then you're also able to measure it by utilizing key performance indicators every quarter. So that way, once you are doing that, you're able to really scale and understand, where is your team doing, what are they doing good in, and what are they not doing so well in. So it's so important for you guys to basically continue to do performance management, performance improvement, find ways to basically mentor and upskill your team so that they can continue to evolve and continue to drive home whatever it is that your mission is for your business.
I love it. I love it. We done talked about what we think and what we know from a business leader and a visionary to be. Let's start to talk about those benefits and consequences, because they don't exist without each other, right? There's pros and cons to everything, right? So I'm going to go to you, Lisa, since the mic's in your hand. What characteristics should a visionary and business leader possess? Inspire me.
Ooh, characteristics. Well, I would have to say the first thing that comes to mind is accountability. You have to be an accountable leader. When you're constant blame shifting, your team notices that. And they, it's one thing to pay your team to smile at you, but it's another thing to have your team actually respect you for who you are and what you represent as their leader. And, sometimes, coming up as I did, I came up in the ranks from being a frontline person all the way up into corporate. So I know exactly what it feels like to work under a CEO who is very aspirational and very encouraging. And I know what it's like to work under a CEO who does not care. And I know the difference, right? So we all do. But I think it's very important that you also have a level of humility, and also you have to be very honest with your team. I find that in my experience, where leaders have dropped or have a level of opportunity that they need to improve on is transparency. A lot of leaders are not transparent with their teams or providing authentic feedback or room for development. So when you're when you're trying to inspire a team, I think that is key. And the last thing is that you have to always find the inspiration within yourself. And before you wake up every day, you want to always ask, what am I going to leave behind in my legacy? It's not just about my product that I'm bringing to the table, but how am I inspiring the people that I work with, the people that I engage with on a day-to-day basis, so that they too want to continue to grow and be a successor, essentially.
Okay,
So,
Lisa.
yeah.
Oh, please forgive me for I saying I didn't mean to do that. I would just want to put a pin on the word transparency, right? Mary, you're at my office. You're here with me. I'm a business leader. What do you expect from me? Do you expect transparency?
Yes, but yes.
okay.
I also expect from you integrity. I expect from you practical wisdom. I expect from you inclusiveness. There is more characteristics of a leader than that. But in my mind, those are three key characters that goes along with the transparency. If I can't trust you, all is lost.
That is crazy. I do a thing called mirror, right? So you have to introduce yourself to yourself before you come into my office, and I do the same thing. I hold myself accountable the same way, because we're human. And if we don't check our stuff at the door, it actually comes into the workplace, right?
Right. And that's where that blind spot comes in. We are often have blind spots to our own behaviors and the way we are showing up for each other.
I love that. And that time, you're working with cannabis. You are what I call risk-taking visionary. And I love that. So what would I have to do to pursue a vision like yours? What you saw it, what made you actually go right after this? I'm gonna tackle this because I can.
So I guess there has to be some passion for wanting to pursue that, because you can have a lot of vision about doing something.
I don't have to be high time?
You do not.
Okay.
You have to have enough passion to see through the thing to the end. And there, you have to have obviously some personal gain from that, not just monetary, but it fulfills something in your life. And I think, and I wanted to just comment on the leadership thing as well. Leadership for me is very, very clear. I have a clear vision about leadership. I come from a military family, and there's a book called Patton on Management. It's General George Patton commanded the Third Army in Europe, and they analyze how he commanded the army and then compared that to business practices. And in the end, basically, it's leading from the front. I think what we want is a leader who's the first on the field and the last off the field. Someone that we look up to that says, my gosh, this person is not asking us to do anything that they wouldn't do. And I think that's what builds the trust in the team and the leadership.
I do agree. I do agree. So I do got a question. Somebody on this panel is good with org development, right? I might have to let them come talk to me after a little while, but Rama, I want to ask you a question, and then Sam, I want you to bring it home for me since you got all this org development status going on. Rama, how does having both a visionary and a business leader empower your organization?
Yeah. So if we just had a business leader and did not have the tech vision, then it would be a very short-lived business, at least in a tech startup kind of scalable tech startup world, because the CEO is, balancing the financial statement and the P&L, and I think it may not scale because somebody else will come up with a better product. And with a tech visionary, the roadmap is endless. If the competitor makes a move, you make a counter move.
So you got no chess. You gotta be strategic.
Yeah. So I think, the advantages of having both the tech visionary as well as the business leader is you can play all angles and be more responsive and kind of navigate the marketplace, and keep winning. Versus if you have only the tech visionary, and you can't form the business and can't get to revenue, can't get to profitability or scale, then it's only a pipe dream or only a hobby, right? And vice versa. I think it's a very limited business which cannot react to what's happening externally.
I got it. And that's similar to like startup companies that have been startups for years, right? Haven't figured out how to get to that next pinnacle. Sam, given your expertise from org development, what would you do if you came in, you saw a startup in instance, I've been a startup for a multitude of years. How do I get to that next level? And how do we be real transparent?
Yeah, I mean, that's always a challenge, right? Like, how do you know when you need to go to the next step? So the first thing is the awareness. So as a technology visionary, there's going to get to a point where you're going to realize your tactics of how do you convince others that you will succeed. So once you get to the point where you're getting to a level where you're saying, okay, we need additional people. So at your start, you're going to start to get to a point where you're saying, okay, we need additional people to make the next step happen. And once you start to do that, you need to be aware of not trying to solve all the problems yourself. You need to be able to listen more and talk less. You need to create a lot of trust and respect amongst the team. And how do you do that? And I'll give you a book called The Trusted Advisor. And it's interesting, and is in that book, there is an equation for trust. And that equation is trust is equal to credibility plus reliability plus intimacy over self-orientation. So what does that mean? Credibility means that you are always saying facts, you're always being direct and truthful, and you're credible, right? You're going to say, hey, XYZ, people are going to believe it. They're not going to doubt you. Reliability means that you're always performing the same, if not better. And it's not like I had a fight with my wife, so therefore today I'm not performing very well. Tomorrow I'm performing much better because I'm in a better mood. No, you need to be consistent. That's reliability. Intimacy means over time that you're able to trust that person to talk more about yourself then business, right? So that takes a little time. And then over self-orientation, what that means is, what is your ego? How big is your ego about yourself?
Even
So the
down.
larger that is, the less the trust. So why do I bring this up? It translates directly into the success of organizations about if this technology visionary is able to transcend trust and respect within the organization, down to the business leader, down to the teams, down to everybody that's working within the organization, you will have success.
You said something to me, right? So when it comes to leaders, a lot of them may take that as being vulnerable, and they feel like they cannot be vulnerable in the workplace. Can you actually explain some intricacies there? How do I be intimate? And I'm afraid that it might bite me later, but I still want to be able to show my team members I care.
I think that is one of the most important things that I think a lot of companies that I consult with do not see, is that if you're able to say, I made a mistake, and doesn't matter what level of the organization that you're in, and then you're saying, okay, here's what happened, here's how I'm going to fix it, and here's how I'm going to prevent it in the future, that brings in a lot of credibility and a lot of ability for the company to say, hey, I can say I made a mistake. A lot of other organizations don't allow that. They're afraid to say that because of what the consequences may be. What kind of company culture is that you're going to be in? Look at the Great Resignation, right?
Oh,
So that is,
that is a
it
prime example.
all interrelates to each other. So, I mean, to answer you directly, I think that being open and able to be honest, people will respect that, and they would want to be more loyal, and they would want to accomplish more.
I do agree. I say people have put the imposter syndrome on so long, they don't even know how to be themselves because they don't know who they are. But when you can find out who you are, it's better for your company in the same way. We want to allow any Q&A. If you guys decide you want to ask us a question, come up to this. I'm going to count to 3 numbers. Anybody want to ask any questions? Floor is open.
I hear you guys talk about vision. You guys talk about the leader. What's the difference between a successful leader and a normal leader?
I can take it. Every successful leader has once failed and being okay with that failure. I don't know anybody. I run a multi-million-dollar company and I did it in 3 years, right? But I failed as when I was a director. And is what you learn from that mistake and what you take to the next level, and how you actually continue to run the game. At the end of the day, you drop the mic, you got to keep singing. Put the show on. Look at Beyonce.
Great. So that means every successful leader learn from a failure
Yes.
at least once and keep continuing.
Yeah.
Go.
It's what you learn from it that makes a bit of difference.
Okay, good.
I just want to add to that too, is that I believe a successful leader allows himself to connect with their subordinates as family in a way. I know some people may cringe like, oh, I'm here to just work. But I believe if you actually get into the field with them, learn everything that they go through, how long it takes to execute certain things, talk to them, as Sam was mentioning before, and collaborating with them, it really allows you the opportunity to get a level of build that trust with them and then learn about them. You know, that's one thing that I love. And I'm pretty sure if you guys heard of John Maxwell. Yeah. So John Maxwell, one of the things that he says in terms of his levels of leadership, the first level is, you know, of course, taking yourself out of it. But then another part that really stuck with me is that what do you know personally about your people? And when I ask people that in my audience, 9 times out of 10, they cannot tell me, let's say their coworkers' wife's last name or how many children they have or anything like that. They're just so focused on the business. So take a moment to disconnect from the business and connect with your people, and that will make you successful as well.
Okay, so you bring a good point. Connect with people. So if you are a CEO of a company with employees less than 100. It's easy for you to know everyone possibly, right? And talk to each one. What about its size is going up? 500, 10,000.
So if you have a larger company on a larger scale, usually what we like to do is implement a virtual connection where you're able to connect with everyone on a virtual scale, whether it be team parties online. You can also have different types of campaigns where you have certain group members that create certain, I would say, events where everyone can connect. You can introduce people, have anniversaries, celebrations, things to call out things that they have done for the organization, and just have certain people in charge of that specific, let's say, demographic. And they can bring that up and boil it up. So that way it's maybe announced on a corporate intranet service. That's something that I know I have also implemented as well. Especially dealing with more than 2,000 employees. So all across Canada and US. So it's a good way to do it, in my opinion. Anyone else would like that?
Educational coordinator.
Ready? Good afternoon. My name is Mona Golden Brown. And actually this conversation flows really great into my question. So one of the questions was, can a company have a leader and not an innovator, or an innovator and not a leader? So if you find yourself in that situation, what kinds of things can you do to use your employees or the folks that work with you to fill in that innovative space or space?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've had lots of employees in my medical practice, and one of the things I had a partner once that said, here's what we need to find. We need a person that does this, 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 and this. And I said, you get what you get. So the people that you have the skills that they have, and they have other skills they don't. So within your organization, you really do have to pick out who can do this. What are your skills, and utilize them and say, and you are not good at this, so you're not going to do that. And you have to do that with yourself. You have to do it with your employees.
Thank you.
Mary.
If I understand your question correctly, if you have an innovator, but not the business leadership and vice versa, it's an interesting question, because it isn't, I think it's always that reliance assuming that the founder or the CEO of the company has to be the end all. And the reality is that they don't. In fact, I prefer it when they don't think they are. So a CEO is a business leader who knows how to bring that business forward. If they are open and, to their own vulnerabilities and what they're really good at, they can surround themselves and understanding all of the different aspects of what the kinds of people, what characteristics of the people that they need. Unfortunately, we have too much of hiring just like me, and when you're in a company, I'll be frank, when you're in a company that you see that and you don't find the way to be that contributor that can fill in a gap, it's probably time to go look elsewhere, because you can't solve it at the top if you're not at the top. And that's one of the fallacies that a lot of times that we hear is that, well, if you don't see it, then make it happen. Well, there's only so much you can do as a line individual. Now, on the innovation side, I think that it's easier to hire for the business leadership than for the right innovator, because that innovator needs to have that passion, the vision around what you're trying to achieve. So when I look at my friend next to me here, he is an innovator in his space. It would be much easier in my mind for him to find the good business person to bring his business forward than for that good business person to bring him forward.
Thank you.
Sam, you wanna highlight
Yeah.
that?
I think there is first there needs to be an awareness. So there's a lot of industries that don't necessarily have a person that's innovating within the company, right? However, there is whoever that owner is usually thinking about how does he take the next step with the company. And they may be looking outside to consulting firms or whatnot to help them understand what is out there and how they could make their business better. And that is a step of how do you get the innovation without having to have it in-house. That is one of the ways you can do that as well.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. I hope you answered the question.
It really depends on that industry though. If you are an industry that has a high-tech solution versus an industry that is maybe a business service, it will vary as to how, but I haven't seen a large corporation that doesn't at least have a group of people focused on some kind of business innovation and vision and strategy.
Awesome. Hopefully we answered your question. If not, there you can
Yeah.
actually catch them in the audience. I promise I'll point you.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you, Masha.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Russell.
Step
Oh,
forward,
stand up.
Vanessa.
Stand on. Yes. Vanessa Russell, and just exciting. Quotient, maybe this way, little bit this way. Okay, emotional quotient, and just having that empathy in the workplace, and then also the mention about diversity, having a diversity of leadership and thought, right? Styles, like that Mona's question that just came in was really about these two different ways of approaching the business. So I'm curious, with the abysmal stats that you shared, right? From Forbes and all of the research, the, mass exodus that is going on, the great resignation, right? Why aren't we learning the lesson there? I mean, we got the stats, we have but the pivot isn't always, we're resisting, right? The pivot towards empathy, towards diversity, towards kind of not making everyone the same. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Can I say something? Okay, so one thing I think is, the truth of the matter is we do not know how to coexist with generational differences.
Yeah.
This is the most diverse generation we have ever experienced. And we have to find a commonality on all points, right? So it is power in understanding generational core values and generational norms, and then figure out where does the common ground lie. This new generation do not care about titles. I did not deal with the Great Resignation, which I was excited about it, but people are not gonna, as long as I continue to keep my momentum moving forward. But I had people that were directors leaving their job to come be my head engineer. Titles no longer matter. It's about how they feel appreciated, respected, and that there is a work and life balance. You can't work them to death and then expect them to still behave in a certain manner. That's irrealistic. It's unrealistic. They're not interested in being their mom, and they don't want to be in the office all day. You have to understand that.
I want to comment on that. I think going forward, the companies that utilize the power of diversity and the power of all of the different points of views outside the box are going to be the successful ones. There's I don't look at it as an obstacle. I look at the diversity inclusion as a powerful tool for innovation and growth.
If I may add, I noticed that
We're
This-
running low.
this came, yes, this came up in a company that I work for. And what I really love about is a tool that we use to collect data on allowing associates to provide feedback, because more than any, the associate wants to be heard. And they want to feel like they are too contributing to the organization. So I think the emotional component, why there is such a issue, is because the biggest stats that I've come across as far as that managers do not have soft skills anymore. And so we had to teach them how to have these conversations, these tough conversations with associates all the time. And so with that being said, is that observation moment, giving the feedback, really authentic feedback in the moment, so that the associates feel that they are truly invested in, so that they want to stay with the organization.
Awesome. I hope we was able to answer your questions. Unfortunately, we are out of time. If you want to ask us any more questions, he gonna make, I feel special. Come on up.
Wow, thank you. I'm honored. Hi, hey guys. Lottery. Hello, my name's Mary, and I come to you thinking of the transition towards the women in robotics panel, which is next, so I'm keeping an eye to that. I come from the Health 2.0 conference side. I'm an engineer who's now in medicine. And to the previous woman's question, I agree that the emotional quotient or, the calculation of that score is very valuable and important. And what we're talking about over there in the psych hallway 2.0, Health 2.0, is ways that we can integrate psychiatric care or emotional intelligence into classrooms, or like adjusting on that side, like at scale. So it would be very interesting to just kind of invite some crosstalk and say, hey guys, go listen to those panels from the morning, because we covered that a little bit. And so, yeah, I was speaking on the panel. And so anyway, so hi, it's nice to meet you. And I wanted to say that I loved the component specifically of the one woman that was talking, saying, I expect of you this, and I expect of you that. And like you laid those relational groundwork very clearly. I wanted to express appreciation and then invite us to do more of that, where like having assertive feminine leadership of assertive female leadership of to say, okay, this is the relationship that I expect of you, or these are the requirements. And like, I feel that we don't always really get that. And particularly as a relatively young woman in engineering field, I feel like my lived experience, I've had very, very mixed messages coming from those mentors. And so I wanted to say that that particularly stuck out to me today. And I wonder if anyone else is having that, but I feel like it's valuable to talk about. And so I just wanted to throw those popcorns out there and see what you liked. But yeah, thank you. So I'm getting a lot for the conference.
We appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. So, hey.
Thank you very much. So you've talked a lot about a lot of amazing things. One of the things I hadn't heard yet is purpose. So personal purpose, work purpose. And so very brief question, because I found for me personally, when I tacked down my personal purpose and it aligned with where I work, or what I do, it's much easier. So very basic question, top book about purpose. Do you have any recommendations?
Sam, you got me?
So I don't know if I have a particular book per se that I could recommend. However, I think that category falls under emotional intelligence. So I do encourage, there's different people out there that have books around emotional intelligence, but around the ones that are business related, I always go by the trusted advisor, because it has a lot of different discussion topics around the awareness, whether or not you understand really what emotional intelligence means. Can you translate that into your business environment? And I've been kind of following that over 20 years myself and for the business. So I think that's been a very helpful book. It's by David Maister.
I'm going to add that to that quickly. Robert Glacier, and for the life of me, I'm trying to remember the name of the book, but it really is around understanding your core values. Our purpose is founded and built on our core values. And this particular book is excellent because it helps you to build up what the true core values are internally to you, to help you to be able to find your purpose and then to align that to your employer or your future of choice.
So once again, we say thank you for hanging in there with us. I think it's really important. You're intentional what you say and you say what you mean. So I'm gonna tell you, go fight, win. Okay. Have a great day.